Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the talk show for you, the armed citizen. Join us as we discuss guns and gear, training, mindset and knowledge, industry news and buzz, and of course, the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hello and welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, and this is episode number 9. Co-hosting with me tonight is the pimp of polymer, the hustler of heat-formed plastic, the wolf of waffle mags, Mark Lancaster of Squared Away Customs in New Hampshire. It was funnier to me when I read it than it was when I wrote it, which is just astounding.
No, still good.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening.
So is calling someone the pimp of polymer a compliment?
It's a first for me. I used to have plastic surgeon on my business card.
Plastic surgeon. That's beautiful. Oh my God. Yeah. I thought, getting crunk on Kydex. I don't know if that's even a thing, but it seemed
Corey's probably gotten crunk on Kydex.
Yeah. That's that poor guy.
He spends more time in the shop these days than I do. But.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, we're going to give Corey a shout out here in a minute anyway. So, as a matter of fact, I guess, honestly, that's a perfect segue into where I was going to head. I wanted to mention tonight some of our Patreon supporters and thank them. So, Mark, since we spoke last, we have a Patreon supporter here in the Tennessee area, Bill Talent. So, Bill, really appreciate that. And we also have Jordan Linscheid, who I can't decide if he's a Patreon supporter or if he's trying to buy his way back onto the show. He might be the latter.
Either way, it's awesome.
It is awesome. We appreciate that. Also, I wanted to mention to our listeners, I found this really cool app this past week for listening to podcasts. Unfortunately, it's only on the Apple iPhone, which kind of stinks. I don't know if there's anything like this on the Android side of things, but it's an app called Overcast, and they've got a free version and a paid version. I've gotten nothing coming back to me for mentioning this other than the fact that I thought it was pretty cool and it's a neat way to listen to podcasts. But it's got this thing called Smart Speed. So if you like to listen to a podcast and you want to have it automatically speed up dead air and quickly get back to speaking points, it'll do that. It's got some smart playlist features and some voice boosting and stuff. It's actually a lot better than the Apple podcast app, and apparently Apple ruined the podcasting experience somewhat for Apple iPhone and iPad owners a while back with, I don't know, one of the iOS updates. They separated it out from iTunes, which was kind of weird, and they created this Apple podcast app. And I've gotten frustrated with it in traffic before and thought, I want to go back to that thing that they just said in that podcast, and I'd hit the back arrow controls on my steering wheel, and the next thing I know, I'm listening to something that I was not even in my library. Yeah, I was listening to, Swedish thoughts on decorative stonework or something. I was like, well, this is really fascinating and all, but I can't understand a word the guy's saying, and I really want my podcast back. So where did it go? And it just made me angry. But this Overcast app for podcasts is pretty slick, and I liked it enough. I bought a thing for it, so I thought I'd pass that along to our listeners just in case they're frustrated with the Apple thing, whatever it is. So there you go. I'm a really terrible hawkster. I can't hawk anything. I just failed at hawking Overcast. So it's a good thing they're not paying me for it. So I also wanted to give a shout out to Corey Klang over at Squared Away Customs, who perhaps is the real pimp of polymer. And also Jordan Howard on Instagram, both of whom say they listen to us each Monday after our new episodes release. So thanks for the support and thanks for listening, guys. I hope that as you listen to this one, we don't make you too sad and you keep listening to us on Mondays at work. So there's worse things to do, like going to work on Monday. So, yeah. Well, so what's happening with you lately, Mark?
Working away. My son just turned nine weeks old, so that's been a big part of my day to day. A lot of work. 10-year-old daughter, so that's always a challenge and fun at the same time. So busy as ever at the shop, and it's nice to do this podcast once a week and kind of detach a little bit and give my mind a break and just have good conversation.
Yeah, I'm with you. I look forward to this. I think that's probably what we'll just do tonight is kind of hang out with our listeners and just talk for a little while. We were kicking this around earlier, and honestly, we had the option to not record tonight just because we've still got the Mike's, not the Mike's Casino, but we've got the new episode with Ian Strembeck in the chute, and it'll be released before people listen to this one. But we're about a week ahead in our recording, and when you texted me and said, "Hey, are we going to record tonight?" I thought, well, yeah, I definitely want to. I don't know. We don't have a guest lined up, so it's just going to be us. But then I thought about it. I look forward to this, just like you said. I look forward to Thursday. Most people look forward to Fridays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess, what do we think? We're just going to do kind of a rundown on some of our favorite stuff this episode, and maybe talk about some industry news and buzz. But yeah, Mark, we've talked about this. We like podcasts, or I do. I like to listen to other things. I think that you were saying that you're other than this, the thing that you like to consume is the YouTube episodes from some of the other folks out there. I don't know. Why don't we share some of that with the listeners and give them some ideas of who we go to?
Sure, absolutely.
Cool. And then after that, we'll just kind of kick over into some of our latest product announcements and favorite products and industry and Second Amendment news, and just see where the conversation leads us.
Yeah, it'll be nice because I feel like we've touched on, just in conversation over the last 8 episodes or so, we've touched on so many like products and ideas and companies out there, but haven't really been able to give them a much of a dive because it's amidst conversation. So it'd be nice to give a little bit more data on each of them if we have the time to let the listeners know what kind of stuff we're liking out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'd be good to be able to just pull everything back together and bring some of this stuff back to the surface, because whenever we are talking with our guests, I don't know about you, but I'm really kind of listening to what they're saying and trying to think of what question I want to ask next and maybe where that conversation could go for our listeners. And sometimes I fail to stop for a moment and pull out to the front something that they mentioned that is good gear or good knowledge for our listeners to stop and go look at. So that's a great idea if we can pull that out tonight and go through some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, why don't we start off with you? I guess if you're not recording the Shooters Nation podcast and you're unwinding with a little bit of leisure, listening or watching, what's your go-to, or do you have more than one go-to that you like to listen or tune into?
Yeah, I mean, I like, and I don't, to be totally 100% honest and upfront, I don't do a lot of podcasts, but I do listen to a few different YouTube channels that have good content. And I think that even some of them use the same content and put it on podcasts. I just don't use the podcast format to listen to it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
A favorite, and we've mentioned them before, is Practically Tactical. I really like the fact that their whole essence of their show is brought around starting from the bottom and working their way up to where they are and what they're learning throughout. And I think that it's really great for the newcomer to the industry, or the novice to the industry, or novice to firearms, novice to medical and safety. It's a really great one for them because those guys were novices when they started, and now they're training with some of the best in the industry on a regular basis and hosting them and shooting with them. And it's pretty awesome to see where they've come in the last couple of years. So Practically Tactical, definitely a favorite. And then there's some just really good instructors out there that provide really good content, and they do some, 6-minute YouTube videos and stuff like that. And Sage Dynamics, Aaron Cowan, that's a great one. Another good one would be my friend Rich Graham, who was a former Navy SEAL. He's down in Florida, and he has a YouTube channel, and he just changed the name of it. And I'm trying to remember what he changed the name to.
Is that Jason Demo's friend?
Yes.
I forget, what did he say? He was going to change it to Full Spectrum Warrior or something like that?
Full Spectrum Warrior.
Yeah,
That's exactly what, well,
Jason, if you're listening, I listened to you, so there you go. I remembered that.
okay, well, I am on his YouTube channel, and his YouTube channel is now called Rich Graham.
Okay. Is it Graham or GRA?
Graham.
Okay,
yep,
cool.
Rich. And he's got a lot of really awesome content going back years. So stuff with canine, stuff with fitness, stuff with entry, stuff with helicopters, stuff with you name it. He's got all kinds of really great stuff. And knife fighting, kettlebell training. They did a missionary trip to Haiti, and we're trying to help fortify the security in some of like the orphanages because the militias were trying to steal the children.
Oh, wow.
And stuff like that. So a couple of my buddies and Rich went down there and worked on helping them beef up their securities with little to nothing, more than like, I think one of them had one of these little orphanages had like an old beat up rusty, like Maverick pump pistol grip shotgun. You know what I mean? Like basically the only weapon. Everything else was just like how to fortify their buildings and how to keep them secure and keep the kids safe. But anyway, Rich Graham's got a heck of a bunch of good content to that you can really keep an eye out. Then if you want to laugh, man, there's always Matt Best. That's always a great one.
Love me some Matt Best. Yeah.
Hickok 45 is always fun to watch every once in a while and see the guy shooting 375 yards with a Glock 27.
Yeah, I'm convinced that man could make a gun with a rubber band in his finger and hit a target at 300 yards. Yeah, it's scary.
It's something else. I'm trying to think what else is. Jason Redman has. It's not a very big channel, but he's got some pretty good stuff out there. He was a lieutenant in the Navy and got shot in Afghanistan, and he's got some really good inspirational stuff. And he also wrote a book called The Trident.
Okay.
Which has some really great life lessons on it.
Right. He was a SEAL, right? Yeah. So
he was. Yeah. He got shot in the face by a PKM.
I just found the link on Google. Yeah. He's got a phenomenal story. His
story is really something else. I read his book about once a year. There's a lot of really, really awesome, humbling bits to it to kind of not forget who you are type of stuff. And does a really great job of making sure you're keeping yourself in check.
Yeah, he kind of epitomizes that reluctant hero.
Yeah, I forget how many surgeries, but he's because of the reconstruction of his face and everything.
Yeah,
taking a 7.62 round to the face, it entered in his nose and came out underneath basically his jawbone.
Right.
And he was like over 200 hours under anesthesia or something like that.
Oh my God.
I forget the number of surgeries, but it's many, many, many surgeries. But
I think if our listeners just go Google Jason Redman, you'll find YouTube links, Wikipedia entries, book listings, everything. He's in there with heroes like Marcus Luttrell, and it's fantastic. Toured
with that group with Marcus, Marcus and.
Are you thinking about Team Never Quit, or is it something else?
Team Never Quit. That's what it was. Yeah. He toured with them and did some speaking with them. And I don't know if he still is or not, but I connect with him every year at the NRA meeting and, go out and have a beer with him and meet up with him at SHOT Show every year. And
that's great.
He wears our holsters, and he owns a company called Wounded Wear. And basically what they do is they do clothing modifications for wounded veterans.
Oh, wow.
They're a nonprofit.
Right.
And I connected with them at Squared Away Customs for vets that had unique holster needs that are unlike anybody else, because I don't have any rules to how we make our holsters, right? As long as it's safe and it makes sense. Well, some of these guys, they are in a wheelchair and they need it to be cross-drawn. They need it to mount to the chair and not to their body, and so on and so forth. And so do that kind of stuff. So that's how I connected with him and kind of made the friendship with Jason. Good guy. But that's, those are some of my favorites. And then, I do a lot of Audible reading, listening to audiobooks and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I haven't gotten into the YouTube thing very much. I do occasionally. There's a few of these guys that I made a list of that, like you were saying, they do their YouTube show and then they pull the audio off of it, package it into a podcast. So sometimes I'll end up listening to the podcast first, and maybe they'll have a guest on there that's just really piques my interest, and I'll go watch the video. But I think at the top of my list, the podcasts that I listen to weekly, the Jocko podcast, Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL. He's the author of the book Extreme Ownership, which is essentially it's a lot about leadership, but I think it's geared more towards the business world, and that's part of what he does. He does business coaching, motivational speaker. He is a very accomplished Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, and there have been some pretty funny. There was one funny video that was on YouTube with him. It was a reporter from The Blaze, I think it was, had challenged him to a fitness contest, and probably thinking something like a push-ups contest. And Jocko said, yeah, well, why don't you come out here and go into the ring with me? And this guy accepted it. And he shows up, and everybody else in the gym before Jocko gets there is basically telling him, you've made such a dire mistake. This is the most dangerous man in town, right? And so Jocko, I think he got on the video and said something like, he's not in good shape. He hasn't practiced much at all. He's essentially squandered his life, and now there's nothing I can do for him other than tell him to accept his fate. And it's like 8 minutes of Jocko tapping this guy out in various forms. And at the end, the reporter was a really good sport about it and said, I would really like for you to choke me out. And I thought, you're insane, right? But hey, if I could get Jocko to choke me out, that would be fantastic too. You've got a story. And so he did. And he chokes the guy out, and you see him laying on the mat. And so he starts kind of coughing and comes out from being unconscious. And they all just laughed about it. And this poor guy looked like he'd been run over by a bus. So, but no, I like the Jocko podcast. It's interesting. That thing can go anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours plus in length each episode. And, it's going to be focused on a book or a special guest or some business topics, things like that. They do occasionally, they pull in listener questions, and he will answer pretty much any question that is slightly relative to the topics of motivating and encouraging people to take control of their lives. And he will even answer the same questions from time to time. He may remind you, hey, I've answered this before. I'm just going to gloss over this a little bit now. But if you want to know more about it, go back to this episode where I talked about it for 15, 20, 90 minutes. Right. But it's pretty neat. He covers everything from world history, military history, jiu-jitsu, military lessons learned, etc. He is just, from what I've seen of him on video, not only is he probably the scariest human being alive, at least on the East Coast, or I'm sorry, on the West Coast, but he is extraordinarily intelligent and very well read.
What I think is really great about, sorry to interrupt there.
No, go for it. Yeah.
About the book, Extreme Ownership, is he will take instances that he learned in his Navy SEAL career and lessons learned, and he exactly converts them to a business mindset and how it can help you in business.
It's insane, isn't it? I mean, it's fantastic.
It works really well.
Yeah.
It's Leif
Babin. Leif Babin.
Leif Babin, yeah.
Yeah.
And, he was a SEAL as well, and they were both, decorated SEALs.
Yeah, they were both members of Task Force Bruiser in Iraq. They were in the battle for Ramadi and things like that.
And it's a great book. It was definitely a really good book. Very motivational. And what was cool is how they would actually give you an instance of an actual business that this problem and how their process helped that specific problem.
Right.
Not just how to do it, but this is how we did do it.
Right.
And this is how it did work out for them.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty neat.
I think the thing that stood out from that book, and even just his podcast for me, being in management at my company, is the absolute necessity to take care of your people and put your people before you. And it resonated. Some of the best bosses that I've ever had were the people that put me before them and wanted to make sure that I was the one that was getting the credit for something that was successful. And they would celebrate individual accomplishments, but then we would take failures as a team, and they would never put the individual out there to take the heat of a failure. The team failed, the individual succeeded. And listening to Jocko go through that and hear how that is just so essential to leadership in highly functioning business teams, as well as in these special forces units like the Navy SEALs, was inspiring to me. So I was really jazzed. My company actually had said that they might send me to one of the Echelon Front conferences this year, because we send a lot of our engineers to technical conferences, and then they want to send managers to technical conferences as well. And I said, that's all cool. I'd really rather my engineers go to the tech conferences because they deserve it and they get a lot out of it. Could you maybe send me to a leadership conference? And they said, yeah, sure. Yeah, well, go find one and we'll be glad to. And so I had set them up a little bit for that. It's like, well, I happen to have one in mind, and
my tickets right here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, here it is. And if it pans out this year, I'll still get to go, and I'm looking forward to it. But it's just, I don't know. These guys are phenomenal, and Jocko and he's got a co-host that goes by the name Echo Charles, and I'm sure it's obviously not his real name, but he's a younger gentleman that is also a very accomplished jiu-jitsu practitioner, and the combination of those two guys working together on the podcast and talking through things and relating it back to everyday life is just a magical combination. I love it. A 2-hour-long podcast can pass in the blink of an eye when I'm listening to them. I think the other one that I kind of listen to on a regular basis that is a gun-related podcast is the Gun Collective. That's the one with Adam Kraut and John Patton. Adam's a firearms industry lawyer, and John Patton is another guy about our age, a advertising marketing professional for the firearms industry, consults. And so they get together and they talk about Second Amendment legal issues and political commentary, and then societal issues and industry news and things like that. Lately, they've been kicking YouTube's butt for YouTube censoring the firearms industry, and that's been interesting. They're doing a really good job and they always do a good job of taking a complex issue like that and breaking it down in a way that a guy like me could take the speaking points, understand them, make them my own, and not just regurgitate them, but then go have an intelligent conversation with somebody else. And I like that about those guys. They're really good at that. Of course, Practically Tactical. You mentioned them earlier in the fact that they all kind of started from Nick's quest to become an armed citizen and his willingness to share I think he's actually kind of described as like an awkward progression into that world, like all of us have had. And I'm with you. I think that his transparency and honesty, and just the three of them, then their sincerity to put aside ego, and they're very good about just being honest with you, and they seem like the kind of guys you could sit down with and have a beer and talk guns with, kind of like we're doing right now. Except for the fact that we don't have a beer, so that's kind of sad. And then I want to give a bit of a shout out to the Gun Funny podcast. Ava is one of I think she's pretty much their primary host, and she's often joined by Sean Heron, who's actually a host of another, I think it's This Week in Guns is what he's moved over to. But this Gun Funny podcast is really cool. I connected with her recently on Instagram. She had liked some of our stuff on Instagram, and I went and took a look at their stuff and thought, hey, I've listened to your show before, and it was kind of a neat discovery for me. And so we kind of corresponded back and forth. But what I think I like about that the most is that they've got a good selection of different personalities that they bring on from the firearms community, kind of like what we're trying to do. But then they mix it up with some shenanigans, which is just hysterical, because to me it's proof that you don't have to be an old grumpy dude in camo who yells at kids to get off his lawn to like guns. And they do prank calls and stuff like that. They did a prank call in one episode to a gun range, and it was funny. She was impersonating a wife that felt like maybe her husband was cheating on her. And so she called the range, changed her voice, and said that she was looking for her husband. And she said, well, he's got a beard and he's got tattoos and he's wearing grunt-style clothing and 5'11" shorts. And she pretty much just described everybody that's in that range probably. And to hear the guys at the range work there, they're like, yeah, no, sorry, we can't possibly tell you who's in the range or show you security camera footage or anything. It was just hysterical. And they didn't pick up on the fact that she was absolutely trolling them with a description of everybody in there. So pretty funny. But yeah, those guys, give them a shout out. If you can head over and listen to their show and give them a like, I think they'd appreciate it. We definitely like the fact that they've been kind to us. So, man, I'm trying to think of things on YouTube. Like you, I like the instructor videos.
Yeah,
I think for me, the thing about the YouTube videos with various instructors is that I don't have to agree with every single thing that each instructor puts out. But if you are patient and you watch and you're open-minded, it's hard to leave a single episode of one of those 6 to 8 minute things, even that Aaron Cowan does, that you're not going to learn something, that you're not going to take something away from that does fit in your toolkit, so to speak. You don't have to agree with everything. He'll tell you, you don't have to agree with everything, but if you just keep an open mind, you can learn a lot from that and not even pay a dime for it. So that's pretty neat training that you can do from your house.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I look at any training that I take. It's like, some bits work great for me and others don't. And going there and learning about all the aspects and just to have it in your tool tray to use it maybe someday. It's not working for me every day.
Right.
But someday there may be a situation where this technique is going to come in handy. Mm-hmm. And when that day comes, I know how to use it.
Right. It's right there for you.
And there it is.
Yeah.
So,
and it's worth more than you paid for it. So, yeah. Well, trying to think of anything else lately in that vein that I've discovered. I will mention this. I went on a bit of a binge listening streak this past week for anything that was related to a gentleman by the name of Varg Freeborn. And we'll talk more about that, I think, in a future episode. I would love to have Varg join us, but I don't want to waste that guy's time. If we're going to have him on, I'm going to have to sit down and you and I are going to have to brainstorm, Mark, because I want to ask questions that maybe other people haven't asked him. But Varg has this book that just came out earlier this year called Violence of Mind. And I'll link to that in our show notes for this show. But if you go search for him, I'm not going to ruin it. He has a fascinating story. And he has a very unique insight into criminal violence and also the consequences that can come from dealing with criminal violence. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I would encourage folks to go do some research on your own. And I want to caution you, when you do your research, don't form an opinion until you've maybe read 3 or 4 things about it. And I'm going to even say go listen to the podcast episode that Practically Tactical did with him. And maybe listen to 1 or 2 of his most recent podcasts himself. I think it's called Be the Wolf. I didn't get a full appreciation for this guy and his passion to teach people and why he's driven to teach people until I did that. And once I got that far into it, my opinion, it didn't really change. It just matured and opened up. And I thought, wow, there's a lot here. There's a lot more to it than just what you see on the surface. And just do that. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I do want to talk about this later with our listeners. And like I said, I'd love to have Varg on. But in the vein of getting good information into people's ears and into their brains, I really do want to recommend that one right now, based off of even just what I've heard. I got his book. I've just cracked the cover of it open and saw that he signed this copy, which is just cool as heck to me. But, I haven't even read the book yet, but what I've heard him say on recordings and on podcast and on YouTube, podcasts, things like that, and the stuff I've read is enough to tell me that this is legit and this is good information. So I'm excited about diving into it. Really, I am. I just kind of geeked out on that, didn't I? I'm not ashamed.
Sorry.
That's all right.
That book has absolutely been the buzz. I've been seeing a lot about it. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of Audible.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have a lot of free time to read.
Right.
Customs has me super busy. Family has me super busy. But we have a cabin way up in northern New Hampshire on the border of Vermont and Canada.
Okay.
Way up in God's country, so they say the Great North Woods. It's a completely off-grid cabin. It's no electricity. It's natural spring running water. All of our lighting is propane. Our refrigerator is propane. Our stove is propane.
That's cool.
There's no cell phone service. And if I get to have time for a book, that's the spot.
Yeah.
And, the summer weekends. So that'll be one that I bring up there. And it's kind of one of those things, like I read the book, I bring it up there, and the book stays there for others to read when they get there. So
right.
That'll be one I bring up there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know he's got a Kindle version of it, and the podcast episode that I listened to this morning was one of his that he did back in, I want to say it was back in March. He referenced the Kindle version of the book and said that it was a revision, and they'd gone and corrected some errors that had occurred in the printing of the book because of the translation between one document format to another to get it actually printed. But apparently the Kindle version's newer. I don't think he's got an audio version of it yet. I don't know if he plans to or not, but if he does, I'm already planning on picking up the Kindle version so I can loan this paper version out to people and then still have a version that I can read. An audiobook would be fantastic. I'll also warn our listeners. Yeah, my wife will tell you I'm not proud of this, but if I hit my thumb with a hammer or something like that, I'm going to cuss like a wounded pirate. And I try really hard not to because I've got small kids and they love to repeat things at the most inopportune moment, like at church, But
Like at church.
yeah, absolutely at church. Daddy said, and then you're like, no, Daddy didn't. And then we have to have a discussion about lying. But because I lied, not them, totally not them lying. They're too honest. They're kids. But anyway, so we try to filter things on this podcast just to keep the clean rating and make sure that our shows are consumable by anybody, not filtered out and things like that. Not every podcast does, and I'm a grown man. You're a grown man. Nothing that Varg has ever said in any of the recordings I've heard him do is a word that I've not heard before, right? I don't have virgin ears, but I would just warn our listeners, if you're going to listen to this, don't do it in the minivan with your kids listening. That would be earphone material because he's just honest. And this gentleman has been places and seen some things, and he's not trying to candy coat it. And that's part of the reason why I like it, is because it is so honest. He's not faking any bit of it, and not even faking his normal casual speaking. He's not changing that for anybody. So anyway, I guess I've really completely fanboyed on it, but I'm really just impressed with it, and I think it may be a hard pill for some people to swallow as they read through it, but like a lot of good medicine, it may not taste good, but it's good for you. So I would go for it. Read it. If you wanted to know what it was like hanging out with us and just having a drink and kicking back and talking about guns and stuff, this is it. This is the real deal. Mark, should we pause for a moment here and plug our friends in the industry and then come back and resume?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll do that. Folks, stick around. Mark and I are going to keep hanging out with you guys and just chatting. We're going to top off our glasses, and we'll be back with you in just a minute. Hey everyone, David here, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about how you can become part of the Shooters Nation. After the show, head over to www.shootersnation.com and check out our online community. Membership in the community is free, and it's a great way to connect with your fellow firearms enthusiasts and armed citizens, especially if you aren't keen on big social media platforms like Facebook. While you're there, also be sure to check out the Shooters Nation store, where you can order high-quality apparel, including hats and shirts, sporting the Shooters Nation logo. Our hats and shirts are embroidered right here in the USA in North Carolina and are a great way to show your love for the Shooters Nation podcast, your belief in and support of the Second Amendment, and are also a great way to trigger gun-grabbing hippies on your next trip to the grocery store. Of course, we also hope that you'll follow us on the major social networks like Facebook and Instagram as we continue to hold out against the forces that would love to see gun organizations pushed off of those platforms. We're not going to make it easy on them, and we hope that you'll join us as we keep sticking it to the man. And last but not least, if you like what you're hearing on the Shooters Nation podcast and would like to partner up with us, we would love to talk with you about becoming a corporate sponsor. If you sell goods or services of interest to gun owners, our audience would love to hear from you. Head over to shootersnation.com and send us a message. Hey everybody, welcome back. You're here with David and Mark, and for this episode, we're just kind of hanging out with you guys. And as I was saying before the break, if you kind of wondered what it would be like to hang out with us, as exciting as that sounds, and just have a drink and kick back and talk about stuff, this is it. And I don't know, Mark, I really like it. This is kind of a comfortable thing. I'd like to mix it up occasionally and do this and just work it into the schedule of our recordings.
Absolutely. And rather than, we could go off on these tangents, but when we have guests, that's tricky. Yeah,
it is. Some of the best conversations that we've had with our guests start from tangents. And I think we mentioned that even last week when we had Ian on. Ian is absolutely willing to go down tangents with you, like all of our guests are. And it's really cool how a thought that we have on script, in our show notes, turns into fuel for something that none of us had any idea we were going to end up talking about. So, it's cool. We've been very fortunate to have good guests. Jason and Randy and Mark and Ian, we're absolutely willing to play ball and just kick back and talk about stuff. And it's just cool. There's a lot more free form to this podcast than I think people realize, because sometimes I just edit it for brevity and make sure that the show stitches together in a way that, makes sense. I've never edited anything to make it sound like, people said something that they didn't say, but there have been a few times that we went down tangents, and then at the end of it, we all kind of looked at each other, how the heck did we get here? And so it's like, hey, don't worry about it. I can edit that out. But I actually have I guess you would call it like a B-reel of audio that is just us talking with our guests about some really cool stuff. And I'm looking forward to episode 10, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But I think that's going to be that might be an eye-opening experience for some of our listeners if they're able to participate in that with us. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, since we're just sitting around talking about guns and gear and the industry and stuff, why don't we talk about some of the products that we like? You mentioned that earlier, that there's some things that have occurred to you that we've talked about in episodes, or maybe even occurred to you after episodes, that you wish that we'd mentioned a little bit more in detail. What does Mark's products that he likes list look like?
Boy, where do I start?
Yeah.
I just had a friend, Robert, over tonight, and we tossed together a Polymer 80 for him. And Polymer 80 is a pretty awesome company. I met the guys at the NRA annual meeting last year in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, the 80% lower is an unfinished receiver. Typically in the industry and in the history of 80% lowers, it's been an AR lower receiver.
Right.
And this company has produced a polymer AR lower receiver, but they also, and it's kind of their flagship, produce polymer 80% Glock receivers. So a Glock lower, essentially. And the way 80% work is it's not considered a firearm because it's not complete. It's only 80% complete. So they provide you with the tools and the kit that you need in order to make it a functional receiver once the parts are added.
And they've done all the homework, right, with the ATF to make sure that, the parts that they are not finishing are the 20% that really makes it an 80% incomplete firearm, or not a firearm.
Right. They absolutely have. And I am an FFL, and I have checked with my ATF agent regarding this. This is absolutely on the up and up, and there's been thousands and thousands of them sold. So by all means, an absolutely legal thing. It seems a little odd, but I mean, essentially you're manufacturing your own gun.
Okay.
Is what it comes down to, is you are manufacturing your own gun.
Okay.
Where the issue lies is when you, or I shouldn't say when you, if you were to try and sell it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because then you are a manufacturer, because you are profiting off of a gun that you made.
Right. So in order to do that,
is
you'd have to be an SOT FFL holder.
You'd have to be an FFL SOT 07. Yes.
Okay. Right.
Which is what I am, and you'd have to pay, ITAR fees and a whole bunch of other stuff. I haven't really gotten the details, but I'm not selling them, I'm not manufacturing them.
Right. And the people that put these things together, the individual citizens, most of them aren't selling these either, from what I've seen.
Well, no, you really can't.
Right.
So, a couple cool selling points about it is this is the one gun that you're going to have that you'll never be able to sell.
Right. Right.
Right. You're keeping this one forever.
Right. That's a good selling point for your spouse. Hey, honey, I'm never going to get rid of this.
I cannot get rid of this one. Babe.
Yeah.
Can't. It's felony. Can't do it.
My wife is downstairs. She didn't even hear me say that, but I guarantee she rolled her eyes and doesn't know why. She, just the fact that I said that from upstairs, 3 rooms away, she rolled her eyes and has no idea why she rolled her eyes. She'll listen to this and now she'll know the gig's up.
But it goes after a couple different things. It goes after, I think the biggest market that they've really gotten after is the DIY guy.
Right.
The guy that wants to have their own custom gun and wants to be a part of their project, not have to pay a gunsmith to do the job. So I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's manageable if you've got any technical, trade skills with your hands whatsoever in a Dremel tool. And they're pretty awesome. They have a different grip angle. They have some different grip textures. They come in about 8 different color polymers, so it's customizable. And then you get it all done, and you buy all the parts, and you get it all function tested, and you bring it to the range, and you've made yourself a gun to the specifications that you want it. It's pretty awesome. It's a cool product. And as I said, I got to meet the guys, spent some time with them, had a couple dinners with them. We were one of the first companies making quality holsters with CAD design, CNC mold.
Well, I hadn't even thought about that, right? So I guess if it's slightly different than a Glock frame, then you would have to have a holster that's cut for it, because I guess the trigger guard and some other things are slightly different.
Is a much different shape.
Okay.
So we got in, I would say, pretty early to the Polymer 80 bandwagon, and it worked out great for us and Polymer 80, because we made a quality product for their lower receivers,
right?
That a lot of people weren't. I don't think that they didn't have the faith in it, but now more and more are jumping up and doing it. But it's a big part of our business. I would say 30% of our holster sales in the last year have been for Polymer 80 frames.
So what would you say to, or what even would they say? But since you sell them, what would you say to somebody who came to you and said, "Okay, I'm interested, but how reliable or how sturdy, how strong, robust is that Polymer 80 Glock lower going to be? Is it going to wear out in a few thousand rounds? Am I going to have to throw this thing away and do it all over again, or what's the deal?"
In my opinion, the polymer on the lower of the Polymer 80 is stronger than the polymer of a Glock.
No kidding.
It's more rigid, but still flexible.
Okay.
It's stronger in the points where it needs to be stronger, which isn't many, because a Glock is a Glock. They last forever.
Yeah.
I don't foresee this being a problem. And the polymer is the only thing to question, right? Because the internals are all Glock internals.
Okay.
You take the internals out of your Glock 19 and you stick it in this.
What about the frame or the slide rails? Because Glock uses a metal insert for that, right? Is this polymer or is it metal?
A very small metal insert molded into plastic.
Okay.
Polymer 80s is all steel.
Oh,
it's not
okay.
molded into plastic, so it's actually stronger.
Oh, all right. So you is a steel like an insert that you drop down in the frame after you?
Exactly. It's like a U-shaped insert that drops down into the frame. There's a 1 pin on the rear and 2 pins on the front, 3 pins on the front rather. So it actually holds up really well. It's very, very strong. And what's neat about it is, if you know how the functionality of the Glock platforms work, the trigger bar comes back, and when it drops off of the striker, it's held into a trigger block, essentially, that's made out of a polymer.
Right.
And with that steel reinforced slides, they wrap around the trigger block. So essentially, that's deadening that pin, and it's securing it in steel rather than polymer. So you get much more of a crisp, like glass, like tink type break with the polymer 80 than you do in a factory Glock.
No kidding. Without additional trigger parts, you're using the Glock parts, and okay. So it's like getting a trigger drop for free almost with the frame.
Yeah, I mean, it just changes the dynamic a little bit, and the housing then becomes steel, so it feels different.
That's awesome. I looked through their stuff a while back, and it's something that I guess I'm gonna have to go back and pay more attention to, because I've got several Glock 19s, but I have them because they're just good at what they do. They're the right size. They're thin enough to conceal easily. They're reliable, et cetera, but I don't just rave over any of them. Part of that is the grip feel. And so if the Polymer 80 has a slightly different grip angle, that might be the ticket that I need to fall in love with one of my 19s again.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. I've done like 3 or 4 of them for myself.
Awesome.
Many of my friends have them. Everybody seems to be very happy with the product.
Cool. I'm going to check it out. I hope that the listeners will kind of join me in that and at least give it a look too. What else? What are some of your other favorite products these days?
Let's see. What have we talked about before? Oh, I'd like to give Billy another shout out over at Boxer Tactical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because as far as a belt company goes, 100% honestly American. Fantastic belts. And, I'm in the holster business, and I think a holster is really important. But just as important as the holster is the belt.
Right.
You have a crappy, thin Walmart leather belt.
It's just not going to do the job.
Not going to support the weight of your firearm. Right. Let alone an additional magazine or a tourniquet or a knife or whatever it may be. You need something that's a little bit more rugged and a little bit more rigid. And Billy's got some options. His company name is Boxer Tactical, but they're not all tactical looking belts, right? He's got like the Apogee, which is I'm able to wear the Apogee with my suit.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I've heard him mention that before on one of the other podcasts I listen to. He's a guest on that periodically. He mentioned the Apogee belt, and this thing is really slick. It's made out of almost like a polymer impregnated nylon webbing material. And if you look at it from the front side, where it doesn't have the back side of it's got some ribbing in there, which makes the whole locking mechanism work, which is just really cool. But the front of it looks like a dress belt in certain colors, right? It really looks like a dress belt, and it actually looks pretty snazzy. So I just use the word snazzy.
Called biothane.
Biothane. So okay.
Like a nylon infused with like a polymer rubberish in it, which is also kind of neat because your gun doesn't shift because the loops kind of stick to it because it's kind of rubbery.
Right.
It's rigid, but not to the point where it's uncomfortably rigid.
Yeah. You want that in a gun belt. You want a belt that doesn't twist with the weight of the gun or with the weight of the gun and your movement or sitting down and things like that, which is why I've always bought the really heavy duty double layer bullhide or horsehide belts. But, they look nice, but I'll be honest, they're not super comfortable until you break them in. And this stuff, from what I've heard, the biothane doesn't require the break-in period. It's got the stiffness that you want, but it doesn't dig into you like hard leather does.
And anytime anybody wears a belt over time, it has that natural curve of your body over time. When you set it down, it doesn't sit flat.
Right.
The funny thing is, after wearing the biothane for a year, you set it down, it's still perfectly flat.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it doesn't wear like that.
It's witchcraft. Yeah.
It's a cool product, and Billy's a great guy. A company that is absolutely about customer service.
Yeah.
It's all about being a 100% American-made product, right down to like, because it's a machined out of anodized aluminum, the buckle on this thing, and right down to like the little screws and everything. Every single piece is 100% American-made.
I can tell you right now that anything machined out of aluminum like that is not cheap to manufacture. So he's not cutting corners. One of my good friends is the originator of the Battle Mug, which is this just absurdly overbuilt tank of a drinking vessel. It's massive, and I love the thing. It's a really neat conversation starter. But I think they started with a giant 2-pound block of aluminum and machined it out of it, and the waste from that far exceeds the final product. So if Billy's cutting his stuff out of aluminum like that, he's doing something for quality and for reliability, and he's giving up a lot in terms of cost savings to do that. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. No, I know it's going to be real easy for somebody in the audience to listen to that and think, yeah, okay, Billy just paid for all that. Not a bit. I tell you that we don't have anybody paying for anything other than, Mark donates his time, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy. I'm a customer of Squared Away Customs, but I like American businesses, which is why we're talking about Billy's company like that tonight. I am completely on board with helping American businesses like that get the word out.
Yeah, no, this is just products that I like. You know what I mean? We're not. No, they don't even know we're talking about them right now.
Right.
They're certainly not paying for it, and they don't even know we're talking about them. But it's just I just made I thought it'd be cool to just have a conversation about products that I'm working with, products I'm liking right now, and that's doing a lot to forward on to the listeners.
We talk about this stuff at work. We get together, some of the guys at work that are all gun guys. We get around and talk about stuff that we've bought lately, and what are you excited about lately? What have you spent your money on? What don't you like? That kind of stuff. And again, this is just talking about stuff tonight, talking about guns. So, my promise to our listeners is if I'm ever promoting something because somebody gave me money to do it, I'm going to tell you that I'm doing it because somebody gave me money to do it. You never have to question that. So. That's cool. Yeah, no, Boxer Tactical. I hope people head over there. I was just looking at a moment ago at the Apogee belt thinking it's probably time for me to replace the bullhide belt that I've been wearing for the past few years. It's getting to the point where it's still holding the holster up and such, but leather just wears over time. I'm up for trying something new, and that Apogee looks really cool. And it's actually less. I'm looking at it right now. It's $99. It's less than I pay for a bullhide belt. So that's awesome. I'm going to give it a shot. Cool. All right.
I thought another thing to talk about, because I know in the episode with Mike Cicino, we talked a lot about white light.
Yeah. The necessity of that on a weapon.
And some really solid weapon lights that I'm working with right now. Maybe a good topic to chat about for a few minutes.
Sure. Well, before you do, I want to say this: that conversation and having talked to you, over the past few months about this, I've always had a weapon-mounted light on a gun that stayed in my nightstand. So I've got a Glock 21, which is the 45 caliber full-size behemoth that's kind of my nightstand gun in a biometric safe with a Streamlight TLR1 HL, I think is the nomenclature for that. It's the LED light. That's kind of my nightstand gun. I've got that same light on my short barrel AR. I've got that same light on my long barrel AR, on my SIG MPX, and on my shotgun. So I'm not a troglodyte, I guess, when it comes to lights. I understand the necessity of them, but what I've been obstinate on is not putting one on my carry gun until Ian and Mark both just kind of illuminated, if you will, pardon the pun, the necessity for a weapon-mounted light in your carry gun, because even during daylight, I think was it Mike or was it Ian? I think it's Ian said, even during daylight hours, you might go into a darkened environment, a building or something like that, and need that light for some reason. So
I never really understood that until Aaron Cowan put a picture up of a force-on-force training that he was doing in a school, like an active shooter force-on-force thing, I think it was. And in the instance of a big glass, like, atrium entryway, the sun beaming down into it, and a man walking in from the outside.
Okay.
Aaron was inside facing him.
Yeah.
You saw a perfect black silhouette.
Right. In a very well-lit room.
In a very well-lit room.
That's awesome. I hadn't even thought about that before.
Brighter behind him.
Yeah.
All you see is his silhouette. You don't see his front as much. And he's like, if you think that the only time for a weapon-mounted light is in the dark, you're wrong. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
I never I
can see that in my mind right now. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
But it was glaring in this picture. And I was just like, holy cow.
Yeah. And what was it Mark said? I'm sorry. It was actually Mike said, the hands, you watch the hands. Law enforcement officers are generally trained to watch the hands because what a person's doing with their hands is what could kill you. And so in a dark, in an environment like that where somebody's backlit brightly, but you can't see what's in their hands, man, we could end the show right now, and I could say, that's mind blowing. I don't know why I've never really thought about that, but you're right.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll try and find that photo and send it over to you.
Yeah, I'm a believer now.
It's really something else.
So what weapon lights are you, which ones are you experimenting with lately?
So I am absolutely a huge proponent of the Surefire line, of the X series line, the X300 line.
Okay.
The X300A, the X300, the X300U, A, B, and the X400s. X400s are the laser mounted underneath them.
Okay.
But the X300 lights are 600 lumen lights, which is a lot of lumens. It's not all the lumens, but it's a lot of lumens.
All the lumens.
Yeah.
How many do you want? All of them.
They are extremely robust.
Okay.
They're strong. They're rugged. They're heavy duty. Surefire's customer service is fantastic. Their controls are ambidextrous. They have a pressure sensitive, so it's a momentary on. Then they have a switched on. Then you have the battery door that you can replace and get it so you can activate it with the grip of your gun. Surefire makes a fantastic product. It's not cheap.
I was going to say it's not cheap because I've looked at these things before, and I want to say that the reason that I went with the Streamlight stuff on the guns that I did was just because it was a little bit cheaper. And now I've not had any trouble with any of mine, but then again, I've not subjected any of these to abuse, with the exception of maybe the one that's on the SIG MPX. And I've taken that thing out and shot it in some really crappy bad weather. And it's done okay, but I guess, I mean, your experience is you get what you pay for then with the Surefire.
Yeah, and the other thing that I kind of base it off of is that I don't know how many of you understand how holster making works in the Kydex world, but we basically prepare the gun with actual lights, for like light bearing holsters. And we mount these lights, real Surefire lights, real Streamlight lights, onto mold guns.
Okay.
And certain types of holsters that we press in between foam with like 2-ton presses, and we squeeze the crap out of them in between 1-inch thick foam, which is a beating on these things.
Sure. It's just because it's foam. When you got that much pressure on it, you wouldn't want to stick your hand in there.
Nope.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, the Surefires don't break.
Have you had the Surefire? I mean,
the has.
Okay, so the Streamlights, you've had those break with that.
We broke them. We broke Streamlights. Not many.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie, not many.
Sure.
I personally, my beef with the Streamlight is the way they mount. I don't like the screw.
Okay.
The cross screw.
Yep.
I prefer the way the Surefire mounts.
Okay.
But it's still a great light. The Streamlight TLR1 is a huge bang for the bunny, bang for the dollar weapon light.
Yep.
It's brighter. I think it's an 800 lumen, the HL.
Right. Yeah, I think so. It's bright, but I know I've looked at both it and the Surefire side by side. I mean, when you hold it in your hand, the Surefire admittedly feels heavier and a little bit more robust. But yeah, bright. The HL, the Streamlight HL is bright. The Surefire is dang bright. It's like 1,000+ lumens, and that extra 200 or so, believe me, you can tell it when it's shining in your face.
So Streamlight, and another thing I wanted to mention, and I haven't tested this a lot because it's brand new, but a very neat light that's just recently hit the market is the Streamlight TLR7.
Okay, right. That's a tiny little one.
Yep. For those of you who are a CCW guy with a flashlight, it's about the size of a 9-volt battery underneath the rail of your gun versus the Streamlight and the Surefires. They're 1.5 inches thick. They're about 2.5 inches long. They're big lights. So that makes concealment definitely an issue.
Yeah.
Versus this TLR7 is a tiny little guy, and it's 500 lumens. So it's a super bright, small little package.
Am I crazy? I'm around gun stuff all the time, and it seems like if it's not for the podcast, it's for one of the websites and the forums and stuff that I run. So I'm exposed to a lot of stuff. It's really hard for me anymore to keep track of everything. So I ask dumb questions. I say all that just to make myself feel a little bit better because I don't remember it. But doesn't Surefire have, or didn't they have, a compact light that was about the same size? What was it? XC1? Am I imagining that? Or am I pulling those numbers?
It's a light we don't speak of.
Is it okay? So that's the thing. It was that one, I guess.
It was garbage.
Was it really?
Garbage.
That's
Like,
sad.
the mount was horrible. It was not ambidextrous.
Okay.
Corey in the at Squared Away Customs, my production lead guy.
Yeah.
He had one on his P320. The light, you turn it on, you wait 5 seconds, it turns itself off. There was problem after problem after problem after problem with that light. And to my knowledge, I've heard some people say that they got it resolved, and then many say that they don't. And at the end of the day, it's 200 lumens, so it's about as bright as your iPhone.
Oh, that's not very awesome. Yeah.
And it's an expensive little package to not be awesome.
I just searched for it, and I'm looking at the pictures. It's typical Surefire. It's very beefy looking, but I guess that they just couldn't. I don't know what Streamlight's doing different with the TLR7 that they couldn't get right in the Surefire XC1. But I like you. I've heard great things about the TLR7. I had one person tell me that they just didn't like the controls for some reason.
The buttons are a little funky.
Are they?
It's like a rather than like a paddle, like many weapon mounted lights. It's almost like a little rubber button.
Oh,
so it's a little bit. It takes some getting used to.
Yeah,
it's absolutely a training issue. With the right training, it'll function fine.
Okay, I've got one of those Enforce APLCs on my Glock 19, one of my Glock 19s, and it's got the paddle thing. So I guess I'll have to adapt a little bit with the TLR7 if I do that. Okay. I still want to do
if you're using an Enforce, the adapting to the TLR7 will be easier.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm used to on the Glock 19. I'd like to put some sort of a light underneath this MNP 2.0 compact that I have. So that'd work. I know the guys at Enforce. I like the product a lot. Mm-hmm. I really like how thin it is. They just need to step up their lumen game. Yeah. You can't come to market in 2018 with a concealed carry weapon light that's only 200 lumens. No, well, I guess I've heard people say something about the quality of the Enforce stuff, and I've not had any quality issues out of it. Admittedly, though, I'm not kicking indoors. I haven't stormed any beachheads or anything like that. So the quality of the Enforce on my 19 seems to be acceptable. That doesn't resonate with me when people say, "Oh, it's not as good quality as a XYZ brand, whatever XYZ is," and I just shrug and say, "Well, if it breaks, I'll replace it." Hopefully it doesn't break when I need it, but if it breaks, I'll replace it. So, yeah, okay, very cool.
But white light is absolutely of the most importance. If you can pull it off concealed, it's huge. It's a big deal, and if you can't, having some sort of light in your everyday carry is a must.
Well, I think I want to give the TLR7 a shot because it looks like the smallest one, and it would go well on this MMP 2.0. But guess what? Your holsters with the light for inside the waistband is the Zulu, if I'm not mistaken, or is it the X-Ray? Which one is it? I'm trying to think.
Zulu.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Zulu is the IWB with a light.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to get with you and we'll do something with that for the MMP. I may go crazy and go with some sort of Gucci pattern or something on the outside of the Kydex just because. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Not really. I probably won't do Gucci. Oh, we could. I wonder if I could get the Shooters Nation logo shrunk down enough to make it repeat and it would actually look like the Gucci logo. That's a challenge.
Or Louis Vuitton.
Louis Vuitton. Cool. Oh, that would be even better. Yeah, my swap meet Louis holster. That would be fantastic. I'll listen to my Sir Mix-a-Lot tape while I wear that. Only people that are over 40 years of age are going to remember. That's going to make me sad.
Before we get off the light topic, check out your Messenger.
Okay. Yeah, if I do this, it's probably make a sound on the recording, but that's all right, folks. Again, we're having a casual conversation here, and the sound is the sound of technology happening before all of us. So let's see what happens. I'm going to the Facebook. Oh, wow. Yeah, so there's the picture that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just break this down. I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but any of you that have done photography that know that how much of a pain in the butt it is to set exposure properly if something is backlit, that's exactly what we're talking about here. So this photo is a picture of a stairwell, and it looks like it's in a training class. So there's a guy that's suited up in some face, like a full face helmet, for simulations training, and he's standing with his back to a doorway coming in from the outside, and this doorway is a glass doorway, double glass doorway coming into this stairwell, and he's facing you with the bright light of the outside ambient light behind him. And if you're facing him with a camera or something, it's going to be so blown out by the light behind him that he's just a dark silhouette. And then when Aaron Cowan, I guess, is the photographer here, puts the weapon amount of light on this guy, suddenly you see that this guy that's just standing there innocuously actually has a gun. He's pointing it at you. This is fantastic. Now, I mean, it makes perfect sense. When you look at this, you realize why a weapon-mounted light on your gun is not for mall ninjas or high-speed operator types. This could easily be you walking out of your apartment building to walk your dog, and there's a guy standing in the doorway with the light behind him, and you just can't really tell what's in his hands.
Or a candy bar, right?
Yeah, or it could be something innocent.
Information gathering device.
I love that, by the way. I had 2 people stop me this week at work and say, I listened to the podcast, and by the way, I've completely blown my cover because for about 6 years, I've worked at a company that they didn't have any idea that I was anything other than, a manager of IT geeks. And now they're all like, oh, you're like into guns. And now they all want to talk guns around me. And I'm like, shh, stop it. There's people around here that don't care anything about that and might not like it. But anyway, whatever. I've gotten over it. It's just I'm the gun guy, and if they don't like it, they'll get rid of me, and I'll find another job. So, but anyway, but they've all come by and they've said, hey, this is really cool. I love the information that's happening here, and they 2 of them have said information gathering device, and they just blurt those words out like they've got a disorder where they just blurt things, right?
Tourette's.
Like they have Tourette's. And so, I was walking into a meeting the other day, and there was one of the guys that I know listens to the podcast sitting there, and he looked at me and said, information gathering device. And everybody else looked at me like, WTF, man. And I'm like, let's talk about that later. Right. But, first rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about Fight Club at work. Anyway, I mean, it's cool. It's neat, the things that people key in on and resonate. And that just makes me feel good because I know that we're making a difference and we're educating people, and that's fun. I'm getting smarter every episode we do. So.
Hey folks, David here. I want you to think about the handgun you carry for your own protection, and I really want you to think about the holster you carry it in. Do you have trouble concealing your handgun? Does it feel like no matter what you do or how you dress, it's painfully obvious to everyone that you're carrying concealed? Well, I want to take a moment to introduce you to Squared Away Customs. Squared Away Customs is a manufacturer of custom, high-quality holsters for both concealed carry and duty carry. They provide a catalog of holster designs to choose from, and they are glad to take on custom work to design something to meet your specific needs. Mark and his team take pride in providing an excellent product at a reasonable cost. They work hard to keep delivery times short, and their number one goal is to ensure that their customers are satisfied. Squared Away Customs also offers a heroes discount to military, police, emergency medical workers, and educators. And for listeners of the Shooters Nation podcast, Mark offers a reduced pricing if you use coupon code Shooters Nation. Again, that's Shooters Nation as the coupon code. So, before you strap that cheap floppy store-bought holster on again, head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and treat yourself and your carry gun to something more worthy of the challenge.
This is cool. I love this picture. I almost want to make it my wallpaper just so people ask me, what the heck is that? And then I can tell them, well, this is what that's about. It's about putting a weapon light on your gun. And then they won't think I'm crazy. So, yeah. All right. Well, what else you got? Anything else?
What about Vertex? Vertex is a product that I started off with their backpacks.
I say
really nice
because
backpacks.
just the fact that you said Vertex and backpacks, again, my wife's downstairs rolling her eyes and she doesn't know why. It's because I am an admitted bag whore. I've got so many backpacks and bags, and 3 of them are Vertex. So this episode's going to mean so much trouble. Keep going, Mark.
So Vertex is a pretty cool company because they are about as tactical as any other gear company out there in the industry, except for theirs doesn't look tactical.
It looks so low key. I love it.
Their shirts, their pants, their backpacks. Their backpacks looks absolutely normal. You open them up and there's the mollies on the inside, not the outside, for everybody to see. And the inside is all hook. So, all loop. So you can attach Velcro anywhere on the inside.
Yeah.
So we started making Kydex holsters to mount inside the pockets of Vertex bags. So definitely like to give a shout out if you're in the backpack market, check out Vertex. They make messenger bags, they make EDC slings, they make backpacks, they make huge backpacks, they make range bags, a full gamut. Actually, one of their backpacks is called a gamut.
I've got the EDC gamut. I guess that's what it's called, and I got it in a, what was the color? It was something like lichen or some other, it's a brown color. I forget what it is. I've just totally butchered it. But, and then I just held up on the camera, which the listeners can't see that obviously, but I've got the messenger bag and I alternate between the 2 of those for work, depending on what I'm carrying, for that day. So the gamut is amazing. I love that backpack. Love that thing.
I went with the sling bag in the beginning. And then realizing that I think I was walking around SHOT Show with a computer, a bunch of wires, like a shirt and a battery and a bunch of stuff. And I'm just like, man, a single strap sling at 10 hours on a showroom floor is not awesome.
Kind of fatiguing after a while, I guess.
It was exhausting. You couldn't switch shoulders. You know what I mean? So
right.
It was all on the one shoulder all day long. It was horrible. After that SHOT Show trip, I stowed that bag and got the gamut with the 2 straps, and I've been 100% happy since.
I just checked it. It's called Bracken. It's a brown color. It's got some brown leather, light brown leather trim. It's kind of a chocolate brown backpack, and I've had people stop me that have no interest in guns whatsoever, and wouldn't know a Vertex bag from a rattlesnake. And they've said, I love that backpack. Where can I get one? And I'm like, well, I don't want to tell you this because then you're going to know what this bag's capable of. So
I think I got it on Amazon or something.
Yeah, I got it on Amazon. I don't know. If they find out, they find out. But this thing it's so cool. And it looks, the one that I've got, the Bracken, I chose it because it is brown with leather and it looks businessy. And I don't know. If you work for a company where some of the people at my company look at you, if you're carrying a backpack, oh, are you going to school today? And you're like, I've never heard that joke before in my life. Way to go. You got a master's degree and that's the best humor you can come up with. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're bad and your jokes are bad, right? But anyway, it's like, I wear a backpack because I'm carrying 20 pounds of crap for this company to support you and your stuff. So, step off, Skippy. But no, a lot of people in tech businesses, especially, they wear backpacks for stuff because we got laptops and power cords. And
my wife's in IT and carries a backpack every day.
Yeah. No shame in the game. I carry it all the time. It just so happens at this backpack that if I wanted to, which I do not at work, big disclaimer there, go search my bag anytime you want to, you gun grabbers. I don't carry, I've got holsters in it. They're in there, but I don't put the gun in it unless, the wife and I are out somewhere and I'm taking my bag because of reasons.
Yeah. The bags are great. A huge warning though. The only downfall to them is when I'm on a 3-month stretch of using it every single day. And then I have a flight coming.
Oh yeah, you gotta search through that thing like crazy. There are
so many little pockets, so many little spots where, whoops, I forgot this folding knife. Whoops, I forgot this. This magazine full of 17 rounds of 147 grain.
Oh God, yeah.
Whoops, I forgot. It's just like, oh man, there's just so many. It's like every time I look at the bag, like, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
I don't trust you to be TSA safe.
No. And it sucks too, because you're standing there in line and the TSA agent's looking at you like, well, you could take this $90 knife back to your car if you would like to, or we can just throw it in the trash. And you're thinking to yourself, you're not going to throw it in the trash. You just took my $90 knife and you're going to keep it, you jerk. Yeah, and normally you're late for your flight, or you're about to be. So you just like, oh God, just keep my knife. Thanks. Welcome to my knife, government. Take it. Making me safe.
So yeah, the bags are great. Check them out. Can't say enough about them. Actually, Squared Away. If you use coupon code Squared Away at vertex.com, I can get you 25% off.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's a great thing to do, especially with you guys being able to make the holsters to hold, the guns or mags or whatever inside of it. That's a fantastic way to get set up with a covert carry mechanism. So, yeah, very cool.
The bags are great, but also I just want to give a quick mention about their pants.
Oh yeah.
I have 3 pair of the Hide HYDE.
Yeah.
They are a standard jean cut. You can get them in like a khaki or a green or a gray or a black.
Yeah.
But so they're like khaki jean-ish, but they're stretchy.
Okay.
And they have some hidden pockets. And super comfortable.
Huh. Okay.
Like reinforced knees, reinforced heels. Great pants. Love them.
I think they make jackets and things too, because I think Ian was saying not too long ago that he loves the Vertex jackets for like crappy weather.
Yep. And their shirts, they have the button-up shirts, like plaid shirts.
Yeah.
They have like faux buttons.
Yeah.
So they look like a button, but they're really a snap. So if you needed to clear your cover garment quickly,
get to a gun. Yeah. Yeah.
You can just pull your shirt and it just unsnaps.
Plaid shirts are kind of like the new. They're the new photographer's vest, because they hide guns real well. It used to be that you saw a guy in a photographer vest and you think, that dude's carrying a gun. But now if I see a guy in a plaid shirt and I'm like, that guy's carrying a gun, he's looking at me like, no, I'm just a hipster. So, yeah. Gun. Yeah. Gun hipster. Never know. Which one is it? We should do a segment on that. Gun carrying or hipster. That could be a good, yeah, kind of like
holding a Starbucks mocha chocolate.
Right. If he's carrying a CZ, never know. Oh, me. You got anything else on your favorites list?
I could go on all day, so I'll give you some time though.
Mine's kind of short right now because I was thinking about it, and I just really need to go back through my stuff. I'll be honest. I told this story at work the other day to one of the guys. It's actually my boss, and this is how terrible it is. He was asking me, "How am I doing? As your boss, do you have any complaints?" I said, no, I don't have any complaints, and I will admit that I am terrible at just thinking about giving people praise for things, right? If I'm unhappy, I'll tell you about it. If I'm pleased, it just kind of goes in my brain and goes right out my brain because it doesn't stick there. It doesn't cause me any pain, so I don't rave about it. But I had to think about this as you were going through some of your favorites, and I came up with 3 things. First one is every gun owner on the planet knows that you need to lubricate your gun periodically. And if you're not using Liberal Tears to do that, which actually is a product name, which is fantastic, you probably want something better. And the thing that I've been using lately, Mark, is Gunfighter gun oil. Our buddy Mike Cicino has a friend that is behind this. He's the creator of this product. I have been pretty well married to Weapon Shield gun oil for the past few years, just on the recommendation of another friend. And before that, I would use, I don't know, Mobile One or Castrol or whatever the heck was cheap. But I started using this Gunfighter gun oil not too long ago, and the first thing I ran it on was my AK-47. And that thing with Kami ammo is just filthy. It is butt nasty when you get done shooting 500 rounds or so through it at the range. And this Gunfighter gun oil stuff, an AK will run dry. A good AK will run with sand dumped in it, right? So we're not looking necessarily for lubricity, but what I'm looking for is how clean or how easy is it to clean the bore, and how easy is it for me to clean off the other parts. And so not really what it was recommended for, but I took that gun oil and I put some on the outside of the bolt carrier group, which gets gunked up with carbon quite a bit, and also ran a patch or two through the barrel before I shot. And when I came back home, the gun was butt nasty. It was disgusting because it was shooting all that corrosive primer junk, and it cleaned up so much easier with that stuff on it. I was like, okay, I'm sold. Completely, I'm sold, because the other products I've used didn't do that. And the carbon came off of the bolt carrier with minimal scraping. I passed a patch or two through the barrel, just a dry patch through the barrel, and I looked down through it, and it was almost spotless. And I just ran another thing of gunpowder oil through it and was done. So I'm pretty well sold on that stuff. I don't know what he's got in it. I think part of it must be sorcery. But anyway, gunpowder gun oil. Again, they didn't pay me to say anything about it. They have no clue who I am, but I'll put a link to that in the show notes, because I have become completely sold on it, and I really appreciate Mike turning me on to that one. Let me think here. I think the other thing that I had jotted down, I'm going to feel a little unfaithful, and everybody in the audience is be like, "Boo! Hiss! Can't believe you completely did that, you jerk." I hate to. This is a confession hour. I'm a leather holster guy. I typically have carried for the past few years, past 2 decades, probably closer to the truth, at about like the 4 or 5 o'clock position on my hip. So we're talking about behind my hip bone, just in front of my rear pants pocket. And I've just liked leather holsters for that. And so the company that I've kind of used as my go-to now for over 10 years, I guess, is a guy out in California. His business is called TT Gun Leather. Tim is phenomenal. He has holsters that look like the Milt Sparks Versamax 2, which was kind of the big rave for the leather inside the waistband carry holster for forever and ever. But he's got a lot of other different models out there. And these things are just works of art. But he's also just got good utility leather holsters that, if you're like me and you have a thing for those, they're at a reasonable price, and he gets them out in pretty quick order. Sometimes his wait time is in like the 2-week range, which is unheard of for leather. Wow. Yeah, it's just unheard of. I think what he does is he just clears out his backlog, and then he blasts it out there in social media and says, "Hey, look, my current wait time is 2 to 4 weeks, whatever," and then he builds up a backlog again. And that's great. I love it, when people do that. But I have seen his wait time go as high as 4 months. Yeah. And so for me, I switch back and forth. I know that we talked about this a little earlier, Mark, offline, and you were saying that a lot of the guys that are one or the other. They're either leather holsters or they're Kydex guys. I'm kind of weird. I'm ambi-holsterish, depending on what I'm doing with it is going to dictate what I'm going to use. And my wife completely loves appendix style Kydex holsters for certain applications. And then she's got this girdle thing that made by, she's going to kill me. I just call it a girdle. But anyway, it's a girdle thing. The can concealment. I do not wear a girdle. There will be hell to pay for that. If you never see me again, this is why. My body's probably buried in our backyard.
Stuck in a Vertex backpack.
Stuck in a Vertex backpack. One of my many backpacks. Oh my God. Yes. But so anyway, she likes the Kydex stuff for appendix carry or the can concealment, not a girdle. If I'm going to carry it around the back side, the 4 o'clock range, I generally like leather, but if I'm going to carry it anywhere from around the front of the waist to the 3 o'clock position on the imaginary clock on my waist, because that's what gun guys talk like, it's going to be a Kydex rig like what you guys have, the Zulu or the I've got an Oscar that I love, the outside the waistband holster. That thing's just phenomenal. I use that really more at the range. But yeah, so that's kind of one of the products I like. I'm going to mention this, and I said intentionally there, by the way, because I'm pondering this for a moment. I'm going to mention a knife that I like, and I'll say that my thinking about knives as defensive weapons have changed dramatically over the past week. largely in part to Varg and his story, Varg Freeborn. I think for me, from now on, a knife, it would have been my first go-to, but now I'm really going to think long and hard before I use that thing in a defensive position. I think that would be, if the knife comes out, we're in deep stuff, right? We've completely exhausted every other possible option. Like I've not only emptied my gun and the spare mag, but I've thrown both of them at the guy. But Colonel Blades, Colonel like a military rank, they've got this really neat fighting knife, which is patterned essentially. It's kind of like the karambit that you were showing me earlier, Mark, but it's got a grip style, almost like a handgun. And I've seen them actually lay these things on top of Glock 19s and Glock 17s, and the grip angle is very similar. And the premise is just simply this: it's an inside the waistband carry knife, marketed probably more for law enforcement and military, because I think there's a certain indemnity that comes there that nobody's going to question you as a law enforcement officer. Did you have to use your knife? Or maybe not as much as they would me if I had to use my knife. But the premise is that if you can grab a Glock and punch it out like you were going to punch forward to shoot, and if you've shot much or taken any classes, you kind of know what I'm talking about. The instructors generally say you punch the gun outward, so you're already accustomed to that motion. I'm actually doing this motion right now, which is funny. You can't see it, but I'm doing it, and
I can see it.
You can see it, but you take this knife, you put it in your hand, you punch out with it, and it's just like punching a punching bag or punching a person or what have you. The knife's angle is in such a way that is natural, and it's kind of like the K-bar or TD, what is it, TDKs or what? I forget what those things are. TDI. Kind of like that, where you just a natural punching motion. You can use this knife, and you can do a lot of damage to somebody. It's definitely not a knife for utility. You're not going to use this knife to open a letter or open a box or anything like that. It's stupid sharp. You can actually buy these things now on Amazon. I don't know, Mark, do you sell those?
We sell. Squared Away Customs, we sell upgraded sheath for the K-Bar TDI, and you have the option of buying a new TDI when you're ordering the sheath. So if you buy both, we have them. They're called the Bro.
The Bro? Okay.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason for that. I will get back to that. I want to know why you call it the Bro. But
the cool thing about the TDI, and it's not unlike this one that you were just mentioning, but no matter where the knife is on your waistline, no matter which hand you get it from, because of the angle of the blade, if you're holding it reverse or forward, or no matter how you have it, you have a very, very fight-worthy tool.
Right. I think, again, my thinking on this has really evolved. And I guess it's always been that's my holdout weapon. That's the weapon of last resort, what have you. But I'm now going to say that my awareness has evolved and widened out to the point that is an SHTF. Stuff has hit the fan tool. By the time I've gotten to that, I'm really down to this is it. If this doesn't work, I'm a dead man. And that's just the way I'm going to have to treat knives from now on from what I've heard. So,
some of those classes that I've done with Ian.
Yeah.
And he busts out the foam knives.
Right.
And you get a very, very brutal feeling of what it would be like to be in a knife fight very quickly, and it's scary.
I've heard that. I have no experience with this, but the people that I've heard, that I've listened to, that have had firsthand experience, say that there is nothing, hands down, nothing that matches the violence and the brutality of a knife fight. I think, what is it? They call it the Tuller rule. If a guy with a knife is within 21 feet of you or something like that, he can get to you probably faster than you can get your gun out. And that's what they teach the Tuller drill. That's what a lot of the police officers, and it's actually, it's worked its way into armed citizen training even. I understand why now. And I've actually gone and Googled, thankfully on an empty stomach, some of the stuff that they've recommended. Go look at this, because here's actually what knife fighting wounds look like. And it looks like you've been attacked by, I don't know, a tree chipper, or something, right? I mean, a bear has just attacked you. It's gruesome. And that's why I think for me now, my awareness of that is that thing, if I'm down to that, it's dire. Anyway, it's a neat tool. It's got its place in the toolbox. It's not the first thing I would reach for, but that Colonel Blades thing is really neat. I picked mine up off Amazon a while back, and it came with this inert trainer, which was made out of plastic. It may have been Kydex for all I know. It was a thick piece of plastic cut to the handle. You can use it on a punching bag or something so that you don't actually cut holes in the punching bag, but it's something that you can use to train with. And it's pretty cool. I'll not only link to that, but I'm going to link to a video from a trainer whose Instagram handle, I believe, is Knockout Lights. And he did a training section a while back with another gentleman. I want to say this guy's name was RN Medic or Trauma Medic or something. I don't know. I'm getting that wrong. I know I'm getting that wrong, but I'll find it and I'll link it. And he was showing the difference of an armed citizen responding to an attacker with a knife using two different approaches. And one of the approaches was to back up in a straight line away from that person. And the guy with the knife rushed him and had his gun hand under control where the guy couldn't even draw a gun and defend himself. And with an inert knife was just slaughtering him, quote unquote, right? And then with a little bit of adjustment and showing the guy how to use angles and working an arc away from the guy, the equations flipped dramatically in favor of the armed citizen, who was then able to get his training gun out, a blue gun out, and deliver shots, imaginary shots on target before this guy could kill him. And it was
Craig
just amazing.
Douglas.
South
another
Narc.
one.
Yeah, South Narc.
That's one to definitely look up and watch some of his videos. I think we mentioned him before.
Right. It's no wonder that there are very well-known trainers like that and like Varg that have entire disciplines and life devoted to learning and to not only how to fight with a knife, but how to defend against it, because it is so specialized and unique, and yet anybody could pick it up and use it effectively, but it's gruesome what it'll do. It's I don't know. The whole thing is just, it's a fascinating new dimension to being armed and knowing what I might have to defend myself against. That part of me didn't want to know about it, but now that I know about it, I've got to know more.
Yeah.
We went from, do we want to have an episode tonight? I don't know what we're going to talk about. Let's just talk about gun stuff, to here we are an hour and 40 minutes into it, and kind of jotted down an outline of stuff we wanted to talk about. And I don't know, do we save the rest of it for another show? What do we do?
Yeah, we'll save the rest for another one.
Yeah, okay. It'd be fun. I'm not opposed to trying to get together another session sometime this week, maybe with some of the other guys, and we'll talk about this. We got some of our friends that we like to drag into these things, Jordan and Brad and those folks. So it might be fun just to take the remainder of these notes and throw it out in front of them and say, hey, let's get together and talk about guns, and we'll record it and make a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
cool. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. I did, man. I'm glad we did this. It's fun not to. I always enjoy having our experts on there. I almost said something that would have sounded terrible. It's fun not to have a guest, but it's just good. I enjoy talking to you about this stuff, and like I said, I love talking about guns and gear and what's new in the training industry and all that stuff. So this was good. I enjoyed it. I hope people had fun listening to it, as much fun as we had doing it.
Yeah, we like getting the questions too. So, by all means, any questions at all, we can give you a shout out. We can keep you anonymous. We can do whatever, but happy to answer them. We had a good question come in yesterday by the website. And so folks, building on what Mark just said, head over to shootersnation.com/idea. And you can send us a message and talk about what you would like to hear on the show. We had a gentleman from up in your part of the country, Mark, up in the Northeast, had sent a recommendation the other day, and I want to follow up with him and learn more about it. I'm intrigued. We actually we read these things, and if we can act on them, we will. And if I can't act on it, Mark R1 will respond to you, or somebody from the Shooters Nation crew, quote unquote, will respond to you and just let you know that, hey, we've got it, and we'll try to figure out how to work that in if we can, or if it's not appropriate for the show, we'll be honest with you and just tell you that. But we love to hear from you. Speaking of, episode 10 is next. That's coming up quickly. I think we wanted to do a live show, right? And we'll try that next time. We'll put out here's what I'd like to do, Mark. I would like to just use our mailing list. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking live show, I want in on that. Great. We want you in on that. Head over to shootersnation.com, look for our mailing list, add yourself to the mailing list right now.
And not only are we going to occasionally send out special promotions and things like that for our subscribers, and we'll also send out news about what's coming up in future episodes, but in particular relevance to our episode 10, we want to do a live show in front of a live audience, and we'll record it and we'll turn it into a podcast. But if you want to participate, get on the mailing list. We'll send out some information, and we'll tell you how you can join. And what we'll probably do with that is you'll be able to sign in. You'll be able to see us on camera, but we'll also put it up in such a way that you can type in questions, and we'll have somebody help out as kind of a production staffer to filter those questions over to us, Mark, and then we'll answer them. We definitely want to get your questions in and your interaction with us. The survey that we did recently, one of the things that people said that they really, this was crazy. I wouldn't have really thought, for some reason, I wouldn't have thought this, but the one thing that people said, Mark, that was most important to them was listener questions being answered. And that was even above our experts. And several people went into the comments and said, I love it when the experts answer my questions. But, the episode that we did not too long ago, where we did the listener mailbag, that actually has one of our highest listener ratings. So that's cool. And that tells me that we're not just recording these things so that our families can listen to it, pat us on the heads and say, oh, that's really nice. That's what you did all night. But, we've got people that listen to this and it's becoming an important part of their lives. And I'm humbled by that. So we definitely want your interaction. We want your questions, and we're always glad to answer them. So head over to shootersnation.com. Sign up on the mailing list, or if you've got an idea, shootersnation.com/idea. There's actually a link on the page too that has they'll take you to that. But let us know what you've got in mind. I guess we'll do what we normally do. Where can people connect with you after the show, Mark?
info@squaredawaycustoms.com, or you can just go to the website if you're interested in holsters, gear, polymer 80 stuff. That Vertex link. If you go to squaredawaycustoms.com/Vertex, all the information is there for you to get that coupon code to save money on all your Vertex products, 25% off. So it's a pretty generous code they gave me. That's the best place to get in. Don't forget Shooters Nation, coupon code Shooters Nation will get you a discount at squaredawaycustoms.com as well.
Another plug for the Vertex stuff. If you're like me and Mark, and you've got a little one, a baby that's still in diapers and stuff, Vertex bags make really cool manly diaper bags. I'm saying that from experience. I don't carry around a thing that's got pink bunnies and stuff all over it. I carry around a Vertex bag that's got diapers inside of it. It's great. Let me think. What else have we got? Shooters Nation swag. So our logo that's got the 1911 muzzle and the crest and all that stuff. We had that embroidered. Turned out really cool. You can go pick up ball caps, polo shirts, things like that. I'm trying to add new stuff to it constantly. One of the challenges is I actually have to go into that and I have to go tell it what combinations of thread colors look good on certain garments. And so I'm like, Henry Ford, you can have it if it's black because I know it looks good on black. I've had to sit down with people that have better common sense than me to tell me what colors look good with other colors. So we're trying to figure out how to get a color scheme of the thread that looks right on different colors like pink and stuff. But we're trying to do that. But you can head over there, shootersnation.com. There's a link at the top of the page for store. I guess that's it. Makes me sad that we're to the end of another episode, but we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Everybody, you know what I'm going to say. Till we talk again, be safe out there. We'll see you soon.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.